All right, hello, we meet again. This is our presentation, Philosophical Approaches to Ethics. All right, so these are our 4 topics for today. Why philosophical ethics? What is philosophical ethics? 3 major moral theories, and then we're going to briefly cover the objectives in this course in relationship to this discussion of philosophical ethics. All right, so at the outset of this presentation, you might be thinking to yourself, wait, isn't this a course in religious ethics? Why is this presentation on philosophical ethics? I thought I already took philosophy, right? During freshman year. Why are we coming back to this? So again, why are we talking about philosophical ethics in a religious ethics course? Well, as we mentioned in the previous presentation, theological ethicists rely so heavily upon natural theology or the philosophy of religion that we must gain some understanding of philosophical approaches to ethics. Now, so what is philosophical ethics? Well, keeping in mind the definition of ethics from our previous presentation, philosophical ethics refers to the moral dialogue between philosophers regarding the nature of the good life, moral conduct, and right and wrong. So a theological ethicist will draw upon a religious tradition for their moral insights. In this case, we are drawing upon the tradition of philosophical commentary as argued by philosophers. And some of the major philosophers of this tradition would be people like Plato, Aristotle, Immanuel Kant, and John Stuart Mill, to name a few. Now this is very important, so put like a star or a unicorn or something on this slide. Philosophical ethics is often referred to as secular ethics, so to distinguish it from theological ethics. Now, this is not entirely accurate because many major philosophers grounded their moral theories on theological principles. People like Immanuel Kant, Roman Catholic theologians and ethicists like St. Thomas Aquinas and St. Augustine. So there were some philosophers who considered themselves to be religious and grounded their philosophical theories on theology. But nevertheless, we will adhere to this language of secular philosophical ethics and theological ethics, so to maintain some kind of distinction between the two, albeit a great distinction. All right, so in the Western philosophical tradition, there are 3 major moral theories: consequentialist theories, deontological theories, and virtue ethic theories. So we're first just going to go over the definitions, and then we will go about trying to explain what these mean. So consequentialist theorists argue that an action is moral if the outcome of the action is good. So how do we determine whether something is moral or not? If the outcome is good. And an example of this is the school of thought referred to as utilitarianism. That states that an action is moral if it benefits the majority of people in society. So if I do something and it benefits the majority of people in society, then what I did was ethical or moral. Secondly, we have deontological theories, which establish that an action is moral if it is based upon a universal ethical law. So deontologists assume that there exists this kind of universal moral law that we all have to follow. So if I adhere to it, regardless of the outcome, then what I did was moral. And then we have virtue ethic theories that establish that an action is moral if the person who committed the action is of good character. That is, if they have good intentions, if they're honest, upright, etc. So if I do something in my life, regardless of the outcome, if I'm a good person and I have good intentions and good character, then my actions can be considered moral. Okay, so in order to kind of bring these theories to life, I would like for us to engage in the following moral dilemma that I am calling the example of the drowning man. Okay, so here it goes. So let's assume that one summer day, I'm at the beach and I'm getting my tan. And I look out into the ocean and I see that there is a young man drowning, right? He's struggling, he's yelling. So what I do is I dart into the ocean in an attempt to save him. But here's the problem. I don't know how to swim. So by the time I struggle over to him, I am drowning too, and I am grabbing onto him out of desperation to save my own life. So I'm struggling, I'm grabbing him, and I'm pushing him under the water, and I eventually drown him. The lifeguard comes and gets me, drags him out of the water too. I'm alive, but he's dead. So even though I intended to save his life, I ended up killing him. So here's the big question. Was my action ethical? That is, I attempted to save the man's life, but because I cannot swim, I ended up drowning him. So was my action was it ethical or was it unethical? Well, that depends upon which moral theory you adopt from our three major philosophical theories. So according to a consequentialist, my action was immoral because I did not save the man's life. That is, it didn't have a moral end or outcome, because according to consequentialists, for something to be moral, it has to have a good outcome, and this did not have a good outcome, so it was an unethical action. It was immoral. According to a deontologist, however, my action was moral. Why? Because I followed what was believed to be a universal moral law. My intention was to preserve life. So a deontologist might feel that the value of preserving life is a universal moral law. I tried to follow it. I messed it up, but I tried to follow it. But nonetheless, I'm a moral person, and my action was moral because I tried to follow the universal moral law. And according to virtue ethics, it depends. If I am a good man of good character, like I'm responsible and upright, then the action was moral. But if I am a man of bad character, like let's say I have a reputation for being reckless and irresponsible, then the action was immoral. So again, if I'm a good person and I get up to try to save a drowning person and I fail, it doesn't matter what the outcome is. I'm still a moral person. Action was moral because I'm a responsible individual. If I'm by nature reckless and irresponsible, and I tried to do it, then it's immoral. So that's kind of how our three major schools of thought would interpret that particular moral dilemma, at least at face value. All right, so in conclusion, keep these moral theories in mind. You do not have to master them at this point. Just be aware of them because we will reference them throughout the course as we approach our own moral dilemmas. All right, just a couple words about objectives in this course. So to be true to the approach of theological ethics, in this course we shall, 1, study various secular philosophical teachings on morality. So usually on the first day or the first lecture is usually some kind of analysis of a secular position on a moral dilemma. Secondly, we're going to gain an understanding of the moral traditions of several major religious belief systems: Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism. So we're going to get some kind of theological foundations and moral foundations in this class. And then we're going to discuss theological viewpoints on several moral dilemmas by studying religious sacred texts, arguments of major religious figures, and positions of theological ethicists. So in the beginning of the course, we'll do number 2. We'll kind of, that actually didn't come out right. We will gain an understanding of the moral traditions of our religious traditions. And then for each of our unit of moral dilemmas, we will study both philosophical, secular, as well as theological viewpoints on those dilemmas. So now you know what to expect.